Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Gwen. Today I'll talk to you about the Bayan Khundii Gold District and our progress on the Bayan Khundii Gold Project. Let me set the stage here for you. We're located in an unexplored region of one of the world's great gold belts. It's a gold belt that we don't often hear a lot about in North America because there aren't a number of TSX-V listed companies there, but let me just color it a little bit for you. On the west end of that belt is the Morantau deposit. It produces over 2 million ounces of gold annually, perhaps the biggest production in the world. Adjacent to that, as you move into Kyrgyzstan, is the Kumtor deposit of Centerra. This is a 500,000 ounce per year producer that is the crown jewel of Centerra's production. Moving into Mongolia, you have the giant Oyu Tolgoi deposit, which is a 60 million ounce resource and Rio Tinto's largest development project in their current inventory. Moving into the Russian side, as you continue through that belt, you get into the Bali deposit. And there's a number of London-listed companies that are in that region and north of Mongolia that produce collectively about 5 million ounces. A little further off the belt, but still in the district in Russia, is Kinross. Kinross produces 20% of their gold out of their Russian projects, and perhaps some of you may have seen yesterday they just closed a deal where they invested $250 million into a new gold project in Russia. So a very active region. And coming back into the Mongolia space, you don't hear a lot from the public company side, but two of the world's richest families, the Rubin brothers out of the UK and the Kwok family out of Hong Kong, have both built gold mines in Mongolia and are now in production. So private, you don't hear a lot about it, but some very interesting stories starting to emerge in this region. So we're in the heart of that belt. We've been there for over 15 years, carrying out methodical regional exploration. And we're now moving towards production with a high-grade, near-surface, 100% owned gold deposits with very strong economics, which I'll share with you. There's a new gold district in this area that was discovered from satellite imagery down to boot and hammer by us, and it holds tremendous promise for new discoveries. And we're the longest standing international mining and exploration company active in this country. We've built up a very strong social license to operate as a result of that effort. We're located in the southern part of the country. You can see that cluster of brown discs there on the left-hand side of that map. We're about 200 kilometers from rail and road into China, so bringing in plant and equipment is quite reasonable, whereas 10 years ago those road and rails didn't exist. In the period that we've explored this belt, we've made 3 discoveries. We now have 3 deposits, Zunmod, which is a copper moly, Alton R, and most importantly Bayan Khundii, which we're moving towards development on. You have a Mongolian government that's looking to incentivize hard rock gold production. Their alluvial production is decreasing, so there's a number of incentives associated with that. And we're next door to China, which is the world's largest gold consumer. A map showing our license areas, so the Zunmod deposit on the right, Alton R up in the left-hand corner, and as I mentioned, Bayan Khundii, which is where we are beginning our development in the southern part of that district. There's a number of other prospects, again, going back to the unexplored nature. There has never been any exploration here before. We drilled the first holes, we turned over the first rocks. We walked out there 3 years ago at Bayan Khundii and began to pick up 4,000 grams per ton. So truly a geologist's dream to go out into this area and find those types of grades at surface. Our resource growth trajectory has been strong over the last several years. We've gone from 200,000 ounces in 2015 to over 1 million ounces today, and these are at grades in excess of 2 grams per ton, and the majority of that is in the measured and indicated category. The initial development will take place at Bayan Khundii, which is what you see in the background of this slide. The most or least densely populated part of Mongolia, so not a lot of issues with the local community, which sits about 90 kilometers to the north. This Gold Hill area is where we picked up those 4,000 gram samples, and we've now drilled that off and have a 400,000 ounce reserve sitting underneath that area. Our objective is to become a major regional gold producer. We'll start that with a 60,000 ounce production profile, and that will be driven by these high grades that you see in this section. This is truly an exceptional deposit in terms of grades being this close to surface. Our most recent drilling in 2019 intersected 112 meters of 5.9 grams starting from surface. The image you see in the left there of that gold intersection, that was 1 meter of 2,200 grams per ton within 150 meters of surface. These deposits come to surface and, as I said, are exceptionally high grade. The profile of that deposit along the strike of the pit, you see here, there is 422,000 ounces in the initial pit with an average head grade of 3.7 grams diluted. We'll recover about 91% of that. So over that initial 6 years of production, we'll produce 382,000 ounces for a 7-year mine life. I'll show you in a moment some of the upside beyond this initial pit. We have worked with Tetra Tech to produce a pre-feasibility study that was issued late last year. This is a relatively small plant, given the high grades, 1,800 ton per day. So a small Capex, good recoveries, simple crush grind CIP plant. That Capex is important, given the grades. We can produce a significant amount of gold for a low capital cost, and you can see here how that compares with others that are currently in the study stage in the public markets. The return on investment is exceptional at 42%, and that 42% is at $1,300 gold, which I'll come back to in a moment. Grade drives this, as grade drives most of these developments. At 3.7 gram head grade, we're over 3 times the average global open pit grade. This is the NPV on the left and IRR on the right. We did the studies at $1,300 gold. As you're all familiar with, we're now sitting closer to $1,550, which puts us at an NPV closer to $150 million compared to the 97 that was in the study. And that relates to a current market capitalization of about $32 million. The IRR begins to exceed 60% at current gold prices. A $750 all-in sustaining costs on Bayan Khundii. We have been rapidly moving this project towards development. In 18 months, we've had resources on 2 deposits, we've had a PEA, just delivered a pre-feasibility, mining licenses issued, and we're now moving through the final stages of Mongolian feasibility and DEIA. We have recently secured financing from the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, which I'll come back to, and we anticipate moving through the final feasibility in mid-2020 and on towards production in late 2021. The upside, I mentioned 400,000 ounces in the pit. There's an additional 200,000 ounces around the pit that sits at over 3 grams per ton. We recently did some drilling that suggests extensions to the south, showing continuity for up to 500 meters south of the pit. We have identified an area 3 kilometers north, which has very similar mineralization and structure, where we've had preliminary drilling intersect up to 70 grams per ton over 2 meters within the top 50 meters. A lot of work will be done on this as we move through 2020. Further to the north, we have the Alton R deposit. So I've been showing you Bayan Khundii to the south, 16 kilometers to the north, we have Alton R, which really didn't get the attention it deserved because we've been focused on Bayan Khundii. But that deposit has an additional 500,000 ounces of gold, and that 500,000 ounces sits at close to 2 grams as well in the top 150 meters. In addition, it has 3 million ounces of silver and about 100 million pounds each of lead and zinc. So tremendous upside, lots of exploration potential at Alton R. We've just completed some drilling late in 2019. Those results should be out in the near term. They were geared towards further defining the high-grade core and extending the deposit to the south. You'll see some of the intersections we've had previously, 20 meters of 10, 14 meters of 8, and 15 meters of 50 grams. So in the next couple of weeks, you'll see some definition of that high-grade zone coming out into the market. I mentioned EBRD. The European Bank of Reconstruction and Development is Mongolia's largest foreign investor. They've invested 1.7 billion euros, largely into the mining industry. We secured a $5 million convertible note from them in late last year, which will fund us through to bankable feasibility. They wouldn't have invested if they didn't intend to be a big part of the project finance, so we do expect them to be a cornerstone in that as well. On the MSC listing side, looking at social license to operate, we now have 6,000 Mongolian shareholders through our efforts to become the first cross-listed company on the Mongolian stock exchange. All of our efforts in the public markets are translated into Mongolian, so those 6,000 shareholders all have access to transparent information about the company. Our board is second to none in terms of Mongolian experience. We have tremendous depth here in government relations, mining operations, finance in this region and internationally. The curve that you see in this slide, you've all seen before in terms of a run-up when you make a discovery, which we experienced, a bit of a trough as you go through the technical de-risking and funding de-risking. But we have that exploration upside. We're now moving through that de-risking, and we have tremendous upside in the exploration. We have a market cap of 32 million US, as I mentioned. Just the Corp project has a current NPV of $160 million, so great upside on both the value and growth side. I have largely run out of time here, so I'll try and wrap this up. 2 high-grade gold deposits at surface, triple the average grade of global open pits, near-term, low capex, high return. A growth side that I believe is second to none, 30 years in the business, and I haven't seen a field like this in my experience. And we've really focused on the social license side, as I mentioned. Thank you very much. We will be at the booth. Please come see us.